Hello, my name is Dr. George Mochocki. Welcome to Introduction to Business. Today we're going to be talking Chapter 7, Leadership. And this is in conjunction with a Blackboard course you're taking me online or face-to-face. So what do you want to know about leadership? First of all, leadership is part of management. When I look at leadership or management, and this is, it could fall into supervision or into principles of management. Getting things done through other people. Basically, as a leader, I get people to do things to meet company objectives, okay? And you're looking at four functions of management, and that's planning, organizing, controlling, and leading. So, and that falls into one of the leadership. Now, part of a good leader, which we're going to read from this chapter that you're looking with, utilizing McGraw-Hill's book and connect is the vision. A leader has to have a vision. He or she has to see where the organization, where the team is going to go. And once he has that vision or she has that vision, a good leader has to be able to transform that vision to its team members so they all have the same vision. Once they have the same vision, another word for vision is a certain goal. So nature of the product is philosophy long term. Okay. Now, when we're going to talk about a SWOT analysis, a SWOT analysis is strength, weakness, and opportunities and threats. So one thing you have to remember: strength and weaknesses is internal to me as a leader, is internal to me as a manager, is internal to the organization. Opportunities and threats is outside of my control. So if I'm looking at the environment, if I'm looking at things that happen, the healthcare, if as a manager, I can't control that. But as a leader, I have to be able to say, here's what's happening outside because we work in an open environment, an open system, an organic system, and how do I make this happen or take this component that has been put on this organization and work it through. And that's part of the leader. And now the leader has to understand how he or she is going to take this new legislation and incorporate it when into its process. Now the other thing that a good leader has to do is to have be able to make good decisions. Now if you say I'm not going to make any decision, then still you make a decision. Now, some decision, majority of decisions, you should think it through. Now, if I'm looking on the rational model, it's basically first you have to understand the situation, describe and collect all the information you need. You don't want to make any haphazard decision. One thing you have to understand is, as a leader, you can have a lot of people coming up to you to ask you how to make a decision or what kind of decision. What you're trying to do is trying to teach your employees working for you how you would make a decision by telling them here's how I would do. And so down the road, since they're empowered, and if you're not always around there, they would be able to make a decision understanding what principles you use. So you have to look at the situation, you collect information, you develop alternatives. In business and any kind of decision making in business, you have to have three alternatives. You may have the best alternative, and then you select which is the best alternative, and do what is indicated, and determine after follow-up. So once you've made a decision, you're going forward. Remember, you're making a decision. Hopefully, you have enough information. Majority of the time, a good leader, a manager, I won't have 100% information. If I have 60%, maybe 65, 70, depending on your skills, depending on your abilities, what percentages. You're never going to have all the answers. If I have all the answers, by the time you get all the answers, the decision is going to be passed, and the item I want to decide to is already changed. So what I want to do is make a decision with as much information I have. So down the road, after I made a decision, let's say some new information comes in, it is all right as a leader to come back and say, hey, we made a decision on this premises and these assumptions, but because of a new information that we have, we're going to have to modify this. Now, sometimes the modification may not work if you already have your plan going. That's why you will go back to your alternative plan. And then when you look at your alternative plan, that the next best plan. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You take, oh, this part here would work in here now, and you could go forward. You do not wait till the year end to find out that your decision was a wrong decision. You're not going to be a very effective leader. Once you made the decision, you always have to monitor that decision and make sure it's going well. Remember, when you're looking at planning, and I kind of forgot it, your strategic planning, tactical planning, operational planning, and contingency planning. So this is the big plan, this is the middle manager, and this is basically the nuts and bolts going to. And contingency planning will fall in here because I have three different alternatives. What if something doesn't work the way I want it to work. Okay, now if you look at levels of management and you look at the organizational chart basically tells me who reports to who, and I can say whether it's a strictly bureaucratic organization, I can tell whether it's a flexible organization, whether it's an organic organization, I can understand which functionality is. So organizational chart, look, even in your family, you have an organizational chart. Either mom is the boss, or the dad is the boss, or they share the power, whatever. You know what I mean? So the organizational chart just tells you what each individual does and who he or she reports to, and what functionality or job description or specification and what department they report to. If I look at different levels of management, top management, you know, they have all the same attributes: technicals, personal, social skills. But top manager is looking more at the conceptual, larger type of problems he or she has. Okay, middle manager takes what top manager really comes, and now they spread it out. So they're still in the same position, but they're still they have more direct reports. They're still in touch with what needs to be done. Now, when I look at the supervisory, first level supervisor, that's the hardest thing. That's your team leader. Those are the individuals who actually make it happen. This one comes up with the idea. This one helps, takes the idea, gets the resources, decides who does what, and this individual here, the one who actually has to have it done. Okay. So now skills. If I look at the skills, that I look at the three different types of managers, all of them need some kind of technical skills. All of them need some kind of, let me just move this up a little. All of them need some human relations skills, and all of them need some conceptual skills. I need more conceptual skills at the middle manager and the top managers versus than what I would need as a first line supervisor. Okay, now if I'm looking at leadership, future leadership, they have to be self-communicators, and you're doing that right now by through the forums when you're taking me online or within the classroom. We're having the small debates. Okay, they have to be self-managed. You have to know how to manage your own time. How could you manage other people if you don't have good managerial skills? You don't have good communication skills. You don't have good emotional intelligence. Okay, and you have to be mobile. Most managers, when I was in the corporate ones, I had offices in several different places. I had to drive around. I had people that were in a physical building. I had people that were sales and construction, and I, as a manager, had to be mobile enough to see what my individuals do. I cannot sit in the office behind a computer. That is not a good manager. That is not a good leader. You have to be a manager that's walking, going out there, see what's going on, see what's happening, introduce yourself, talk to your employee, get the tempo, feel your employees. So the employees know you. They could come to you with your problems. They could come to you and help you resolve issues, but they have to trust you. And the only way they can trust you is to build that relationship. And part of the leadership that I need to build the relationship is to be with the individual so they see me, they touch me, they talk to me. I'm in their space, not in their face. In their space, and I'm dealing with them. Okay. Now there's different types of leadership. You got an autocratic leadership. Basically, is you do it as I tell you. Don't ask any questions. I'm the boss. And you'll find that more in the governmental. And you find, in sometimes places the autocratic type of leadership makes sense. If I'm in an ER room, I don't want to say let's like a participative democratic leadership. Let's take a vote on that. The ER, you have to respond real quickly. So you're going to have that autocratic. Autocratic leadership should be a minimum, but sometimes you have to take charge. The building is on fire or something's happened. You don't have a time to be more participative. You have to take the lead and take the autocratic type of role. Most of the managers are going to work in this participative type of democratic leadership. Participative means I talk to my employees. I get their input. Remember, just because they want it one way, I am still the leader. I will have to convince them or say, hey, I understand this is what you want. The law and the policy does not preclude us to go into this direction. We have to follow these rules. And remember, they're empowered. They're giving you your input. When you get the input for an individual, you have a better buy-in. You as a manager is not manipulating, but to make sure that organizational goals, objectives, laws and requirements, ethics is all contained within the team. And then you have a free reign leadership. Even a free reign leadership basically has some structure, but that's basically, hey, do whatever you want and it'll work out. Sometimes that works out well if I'm in a virtual office and I have consultants and everything else, and they're trained individuals who I know if I let them go, they'll do fairly well. And that's kind of it has to be the culture. It has to be the product. It has to fit in. This is usually not the best type of leadership. You're mostly into type of this leadership and then autocratic, but sometimes you'll use all three, okay? Now, empowerment is for the individual. What's the difference between empowerment and delegation? Empowerment, that when I delegate something, I tell you, you are my assistant. You have certain powers because I'm going on vacation. You're taking over the office. So I delegated something. When I come back, I take it back. The difference for empowerment is part of your job description, the job specification. You're empowered. You have certain boundaries that you could make rational decisions on your own. You don't have to come to me all the time. That's empowerment. If you don't know how to make those decisions properly, I could unhire you. In simplistic words, fire you. But now the new terminology is unhire because we have to be a little bit more sensitive. But if I'm looking at unhiring you, that means you no longer could function because you don't know how to make decisions. Now, you have people that never made decisions in their whole life because they might have been in an autocratic type of a leadership situation. So you as a leader have to say, I made this decision because of these variables, because of these factors. When I did my research, this is the reason I made this decision. So you have to teach individual empowerment. But after a while, they should be able to make their own decisions because that's part of their job description. Otherwise, you could, for lack of better words, they're terminated. They're no longer working because they're not empowered employees. They don't know how to make decisions. Knowledge makes make sure that you communicate information to employees, keeping them informed. I would let them know my financial statements, not my profit and margin. I said, here's how much we're losing. Here's how we're on target. Here's how much money I have. So when they know that I can't give them all the overtime. I have some constraints as a leader that I have to work with. And they, as employees, if they understand what's going on, they'll be able to help me more. Measure success. I'm looking at external customers, internal customers, managing for the future. Prepare for the unexpected. If you look at managing for the future, faster reaction time. Customers want it right away. My boss wants it right away. So how do I make it faster? I use technology. I use different people. I know people that could help me out there. So if I'm looking at, I have to use all of this. I have the knowledge. I have the experience. Okay, flatter structures. Remember, we're not as longer the tall organization, though we do have a bureaucratic center or a core. But most of the businesses in operation are basically flat, so I can respond faster to the organization. I have less managers, but those managers are more relationship type of managers, more participative. They'll be able to get more things done with the individuals because they're within their what do you call it, structure, and you understand their processes, okay? Building teams, grow globally. You have people not only from international, but it makes sense because we talked about diversity. I have people from different cultures, different backgrounds, different disciplines, different functionalities working underneath me. I have to develop a cultural sensitivity because I have people with different religions, different things, so they understand. The biggest thing with a lot of the teams or problems, we don't understand the individual, or we do things that we learn in our global chapter, cultural chapter, that we're offending them. And then after a while, if I think somebody is disrespecting me, for lack of better words, not only as a leader, but as an employee, I have that attitude. I won't work with the individual. Now the team is not working well. I have to get everyone to understand, hey, here's their limitations, here's the things that you don't do, and here's a mutual thing as a team that we go forward. Invest in technology. This class is technology. You have the Skype. You have a lot of things out with the Blackboard. There's a lot of interaction in business. Technology is your friend, or it could be your enemy, for lack of better words. But the customers are all smartphones. I have to adapt to the technology because that's my customer base. So as an employee and everything else, I can't be shy of technology. I'm not talking I want the best, but I have to see what's going on. I have to be able to use smartphones, use all this thing to make me more effective and efficient as a leader. Develop a family work atmosphere, and that depends on the leader. That's your personality. Some people are, so if I'm a participative, a family means that we all understand, we share information, we communicate. There is, even in a family, there's some disagreement, but it's disagreement with respect and disagreement that has some meaning, and we come up as a collective and resolve the issues and move on forward, create a vision. And remember, the leader is the one who's going to create the vision, is going to help people develop the vision within his or her teams and enhance competency. Most leaders got to know computers, they got to know Word, they got to be good verbal communicators, they have to be able to take technology and put it in. Look, I don't have to know all the its and buts of technology, but as a leader, as a manager, I have to know how this different parts fit in to make a whole. All right, so that takes care of our leadership. It's very interesting. Remember, I need leadership skills. If I'm if I'm a small entrepreneur, I basically have to do all of these. I'm basically top management, middle manager, and supervisor. When you're in a corporate or medium organization, you'll have the several different levels. What you're going to find out, most organizations are smaller, more flatter, even the bureaucratic ones. So it's going to take longer to get into the top. You have more management. But then when I'm looking at more management, you know there's a reduction in management staff, and that's not the leadership. I don't need all the staff information to help me make decisions because technology does that for me. So when you look at the reduction of management, it's usually the staff position. I still need individuals that could get this one is the biggest thing, is how to make effective decisions and get things done through employees. I am basically the mentor, the coach to get things done through employees to meet company objectives that are effective and efficient and cost effective. All right, my name is Dr. George Mochocki. This is Introduction to Business, and this is a general overview of leadership that you need as a small business owner or a manager in a medium company, or a manager or a leader in a larger organization. And I'll see you for our next clip. Enjoy.